Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for frame rate is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
We begin today with news from Detroit, where automaking giant American Automotive announced a safety recall of all 2004 cars containing neck belts. The neck belts, introduced last month in an attempt to reduce head injuries, have been found to cause crushed tracheas, severe spinal damage, and violent decapitation.
It's Frame Rate. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Brian Brushwood. You took a while on that one. I was confused. I was like, where's the It's Frame Rate?
I was feeling it. I was waiting for it. You know, it strikes me at
the moments.
It strikes me at a different time. I don't want to get caught in that rut that I got caught in with Tech News Today now. Tech News Today, I said, you know, this is Tech News Today for the date on a certain beat. And now if I don't do it on that beat, we literally get emails from people complaining.
No kidding.
Yeah. Like, you've been really sloppy about the being on the beat lately. Do you not care about the show as much?
People, so this is like intentional. This is you getting all punk rock. This is you getting a temporary tattoo.
I just don't want to get typecast.
It's like
the frame rate, I should always come right after that first bridge, and yeah.
Yeah, whatevs. That's right. That's a cigarette in my mouth. I'm pretending to smoke. I might actually start. It's Frame Rate, bro.
Yeah, that's right. That's how punk rock we are. We give ourselves lung cancer.
Or pretend to, or act like we just might try. But I'll tell you what definitely this cigarette seems to have done is turn me bright purple. For some reason, the lighting in this room, between the green background,
I thought it was because you started smoking. It was, you're getting that high blood pressure already.
A little known problem with smoking is it immediately turns you bright purple. Now we can finally scare kids straight. So, hey,
yes.
How have you been, Tom?
I have been good. Now, you are in a different location, town to town, up and down the dial. Where are you this time?
Right now, I'm in South Florida. I'm in the middle of my last run at the Coconut Creek Casino, and tomorrow night, I'm here with the Film Ride Boys, where this is Ryan Connolly's office. Tomorrow I'm at the casino. We're doing an SFW after that, and then the next day we're in Louisville, Kentucky, of course, because that makes sense.
That makes sense. Well, thanks to the Film Ride guys for letting you use their space there. Revision3.com/film riot, FILMRIOT. If you want to know about actually making freaking films, these guys know what they're talking about.
Yeah, they love movies like nobody else I've ever encountered. And in fact, I originally was going to suggest that we get Ryan on the show as a guest, but they are so slammed right now because they're leaving for Spain on the same trip that our friends here that your wife and John C. Dvorak are eloping off to Spain. They're doing the same trip.
I learned about it on Valentine's Day. It was kind of sad.
That's right.
No, I thought you were going to say I was going to have them on the show, but then I realized they actually know about films, and that would make us look horrible.
I know, right? They'd be all like, no, that was not the movie he was in. It was this other movie. And I would be like,
no, X-Men First Class is not a television show, Tom.
That's right, yes. I almost want to jump to it. I guess we'll get to X-Men First Class because there's a much more interesting, much bigger story to talk about. But we already explained that, yes, we understood that it turns out the X-Men First Class is a giant movie and not a small TV show like we were originally under the impression. And we're going to take a look at the trailer. But first, I think we should talk about a very big story.
The big story.
This just in, the big story.
The big story this week comes via Ars Technica. Matthew Lazar writes up, I think it's probably Laser, but I like calling him Lazar.
No way. Lasers over Lazars. Everyone knows lasers.
Behind the scenes at the Federal Communications Commission, a war is being waged between the cable companies and the set-top box makers like Google, essentially as a replacement for the cable card. the FCC is proposing something called the Allvid system. Now, Cable Card was supposed to free you from having to rent your box from the cable company, right?
Right.
It didn't. They dragged their feet. The Cable Card doesn't give you all the video on demand and pay options. And, you can buy like a TiVo box with a Cable Card, but there aren't that many devices out there that take Cable Card. So most people just stick with renting the set-top box from their cable company. What the Allvid system is supposed to do, which, by the way, Google is a very big supporter of, is allow you not only to get your broadband connection like a Google TV and watch all the video available over the internet, but also your cable connection. So they kind of do this with the Logitech Review, with a workaround sort of way. They use an IR repeater to control your cable box, but the Allvid system would mean you don't need a separate cable box. You would just have one box that would give you internet and cable television all in one.
Well, and this was the moment I heard about Google TV, the idea that you can have a pretty-looking Google-esque GUI to access everything, whether it's DVR, because I'll tell you, I can't get over, I have fantastic programming that I pay for, and I never watch it because, or I end up buying it again because I hate the clunky DVR interface on Time Warner Cable. And the Google TV, the promise of an easy computer-like way to decide, just check everything you like, a Netflix-esque interface for all of media, and don't worry, we'll figure out what time it's on, what channels it's on, and get it over to you. Smooth and simple was what I wanted from the beginning, and the promise of a single box to handle all of that is not, I think, the dream for everyone who digs television and movies, and everyone who pays $100 for cable.
The problem is it's a big technical issue to figure out how to really make this work. As an owner of the Logitech Review Google TV box, that thing doesn't work. I do not have it hooked up to my DirecTV because when I piped it through, it degraded the signal. I could tell that the signal was not as good as it was when I plugged HDMI directly into my TV, and I don't know why. The Google TV folks that I've talked to have said that shouldn't do that. So it may be a problem with just my box, or maybe it's the way DirecTV compresses their signal. I don't know.
I wouldn't imagine that it's a technical hurdle as much as a legal hurdle. I mean, I understand just getting any separate different content owners to cooperate for something like this. I imagine somebody owns some copyright on something that throws a monkey wrench into anything, because we all want one interface that lets us get to everything. And of course, getting anyone to agree to one interface for anything is a tough thing.
Yeah, the problem is getting the ability for it's not even so much illegal as just a cooperation thing. Getting the cable manufacturer to agree to play along with this so you don't have to do this. Because I was going to say the other side of it is not just the compression issue, but the fact that it's controlling it with the IR repeater means it doesn't always work exactly the way it should. What they want to do, the FCC regulations allow each cable operator to offer a unified interface for everything in one box, but manufacturers and retailers of competitive devices aren't able to replicate that a lot. So this idea of separating the box from the cable industry is becoming a problem, and just having the technical chops to make it work, given the different types of sources coming into the box, is an issue as well.
So the promise is what? That it's one box to rule them all. You plug it in, and you plug in both your cable and your broadband connection, and it just magically does everything. Now, you said that Google's a supporter, but they're not developing all of it?
Google's in there saying, yes, go Allvid. We will make Google TV Allvid compliant. Sony is in there asking the Federal Communication Commission to lock out cable companies from the marketplace and say, you know what? You shouldn't be playing in this space because it's anti-competitive. We'll never be able to have a marketplace for these devices if the cable companies are making them. However, the National Cable Association, the NCTA, says the offerings of MPVDs and online video distributors are all assembled, crafted, and sold in an environment in which each provider operates as a retailer, but in which Sony and Google are trying to convert only MPVDs into wholesalers. MPVD is being used for the cable companies in this case. Sony and Google inexplicably claim that cable operators and other MPVDs could offer all programming and all internet content through a single unified user interface. That is absurd. Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Sony, Google, and many others negotiate to obtain their own rights and to construct retail offerings that they define. They do not open their storerooms and databases for MPVDs to take as inventory and make a part of their own unified offering in another store. So the problem is conceptual. It's back to this thing we talk about seemingly every week about licensing. Well, it's fine for Apple to make a deal and show it on your laptop, but when it's on your television, now it's us showing it because we provided the box. It's like, no, it's not. It's just bringing it from the internet. But it's the reason that Google TV has all 4 major over-the-air broadcasters blocking their websites from being shown on Google TV, even though it's just a Chrome browser, because they see it as something else that needs to be licensed, a different box. But it's not. It's just the internet.
I just feel like the internet is brewing ever so closer to our own Egypt experience, where we all march out on Twitter and just shout angry things while cable execs run us over with cars. And then finally, the military takes over the internet and they just like, everyone can watch everything they want on whatever device they want.
Well, I don't mean to belittle the situation in the Middle East by straining this metaphor too far, but we've had this sort of situation going on for a long time. The civil disobedience has been BitTorrent and P2P. It's been going and downloading things saying, look, you're not going to give me the choice to watch this legally the way I want. I'm going to go do it illegally. People don't frame it that way very often because it's breaking the law, but civil disobedience breaks the law. And in essence, that's what a lot of people are doing intentionally because they want to push the industry in that direction. And the industry doesn't want to admit it. So the industry is sending out their own troops to sue people and trying to get the ISPs to cooperate with them. There are a lot of parallels there.
Right. Well, and I'll tell you what, and this was deeply disturbing to me. There's a million things that are really bad and wrong about the DMCA, the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, signed into law, like 97, 98. But out of all the provisions, the one that I hated the most was, as I understand it, the piracy is always illegal, right? Copywriting, stealing copyrighted materials, always illegal. But in the mid 90s, it was illegal. It was criminally illegal to distribute, but it was only a civil suit to have copyrighted materials. The DMCA changed it to where if you had copyrighted materials in excess of a certain value, and it was an arbitrary like $1,000 or $2,000 worth or whatever, which at the time anyone who had an MP3 library of more than 30 albums was over that. Actually, no, I guess or 100 albums was over that. But it's like it made it a federal crime to where now it's not it wasn't just a case where it's like you shouldn't have done that and now we're going to sue you and we're going to get our money plus damages. Now it's like you are a criminal who can go to jail for possessing copyrighted materials that you're not entitled to.
But you know what?
And so that's
absolutely right, and it went even farther than that in making it illegal for you to circumvent copyright, even to do something legal, like make a legitimate backup copy. You can make a backup copy of your DVD legally as an owner of a DVD, but you cannot circumvent copyright to make a legal backup copy of your own DVD. You break the federal law if you break the copyright in order to make your legal backup. That's what's ridiculous.
Right. Well, and here's the other thing, is as technology progresses, whatever encryption they use, once it gets broken or it gets, the better technology advances, the easier it is to break this. So it's like, it's the equivalent of putting a flimsy lock saying you are allowed to have the tools inside this shed. And I have this zip tie locking it. However, it is against the law for you to break the zip tie to get at the tools that you are allowed to have. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is ridiculous. Now, I think what's going to happen is nothing's going to happen to the DMCA. The DMCA will die a withering death where it will just become irrelevant and no one will need it anymore. I hope so. I don't think it'll get overturned. What will happen is things like streaming, things like getting rid of DRM, realizing the advantages of Creative Commons will eventually take over because of the marketplace. And in fact, we see evidence already of how the marketplace is voting with their feet in another big story.
Oh, well done.
That was a little too slick for Jason. Sorry.
Stop everything. It's another big story.
You were too good, man.
You're too good.
Smooth.
I forgot. I should have given you that.
You foiled me, Merritt. It's okay. I'll get it next time.
I'm not sure I even knew that that's what was going to happen. Okay, so Nielsen publicly issued late last Friday its first set of online video metrics since June 2010. They've been dealing with computer glitches that had undercounted data for most of the last year. Netflix has managed to crack the top 10 in both total video streams and unique viewers, which is remarkable for several reasons. Netflix is the only paid-for product on the list. They are competing with things like YouTube and Vivo. And even if Netflix were free, it's delivering movies and TV shows that are exponentially longer to watch. These are 2-3 hour videos versus the 2 and 3 minute clips on most of these other services. Yet Netflix in January finished 5th on the list of total streams, delivering 200,000 videos, up 38% over the previous month, and also saw sizable month-over-month growth of 16%. And the time per viewer is blowing every other site away. They are number one, 22.9% increase in time per viewer. Number two is Tudu.com, which I believe is it's a Taiwanese or Korean video site. Then Hulu, number 3, then Mega Video. Now, Tudu and Mega Video have both been known to be places where you can watch copyrighted video streaming, even though it's not authorized by the copyright holder. Netflix is beating them.
So answer me this. First of all, do we have any metrics on how this compares to BitTorrent? I guess the important, with BitTorrent, you're just looking at raw data.
Yeah, you're just looking at downloads versus streams. Exactly, yeah.
I would love it if there was some kind of metrics where we could see how Netflix is doing against piracy in general, or even a team up between this top 10 video sites and see if legal content is now outpacing illegal content. Because as we've said before on Frame Rate, we want a solution that makes everyone happy, that makes content creators get paid, that gets people the ability to watch what they want when they want in the way that they are entitled to do so. But until then, we are not ignorant of the reality that people are making the decision to, as you say, vote with their feet and march on over to the black market to get what they want.
And I do think especially with video, I mean, even with music where you want to repeatedly play a song over and over again, people are moving to streaming sources like Spotify, like Rdio, like Pandora, versus having to buy every single track. With video, where you're likely to only want to watch it once, maybe twice, streaming is it. So the idea of having to go to BitTorrent and download something and wait for it to finish downloading, then have the file, then play the file, could easily be blown away if there was an easy legal way to just, like Netflix does, say, this is the movie I want to watch, play. Done.
Now, you know what I was wondering? In an age where more and more ISPs are flirting with the idea of data usage bandwidth caps, and that I wonder if streaming, I wonder if there's a place for some kind of internet version of eco-friendliness, the internet bit-conscious environmentalism, where it's just like, hey, you know, the equivalent of driving your car all over town. Like, sure, you can drive your car all the way around, but you're using up all the gas. Like streaming, you know, it's like, hey, man, you're downloading that same movie 3 times, you know, and you're using up all our bits. They're so precious. I wonder if hopefully the bandwidth caps won't be an issue for much longer. Hopefully people will vote for their, you know, talk about vote for their feet and the populist uprising. I mean, as I've said before, bandwidth caps are the internet. It's the third rail that nobody can touch without the whole internet exploding. But it just seems like it. Some part of me wonders if streaming isn't an inherently wasteful way to consume all your video, especially if you watch it again and again.
Well, you know what? It's an artificial problem. And I don't want to sidetrack us into a huge networking, net neutrality, bandwidth caps discussion. But the fact of the matter is, bits don't need to be conserved. Bits aren't individual things, and there isn't a limited supply of them. Network capacity doesn't really work the way everyone pretends it works. It's not like the water company where they're like, hey, you know, it hasn't been a lot of rain lately, so we can't deliver you as much water. You know, we need you to conserve. Bits aren't like that. Capacity is easily added. It's just that the companies don't want to spend the money to add it. So what we need is competition, because there's plenty of bandwidth on the backbone for everyone to be streaming video all the time. So, you know, you're right. You know, in this kind of artificially constrained environment in the United States that we live in, you have an argument to be made there, and in the short term, it's probably something to think about.
And understand, I'm not arguing for anything. I'm just wondering if that's an interesting, point to consider. I mean, I'm with you. I think that it is an artificial limitation. It's artificial scarcity. I think it is limiting the development of the internet. And what we all need is we all want as much bandwidth as possible to be available. And I think caps are inherently restrictive and a bad idea.
Yeah. For instance, let me throw out a few numbers. I'm going to borrow this story from Tech News Today. We talked about this earlier today. There is a good op-ed piece on Ars Technica talking about what 4G means. And the president here in the United States has said we've reached our Sputnik moment in connectivity, and the FCC is pushing to use the 500 megahertz bandwidth spectrum to roll out 4G service across the United States. Well, what does 4G mean? Here in the United States, here's what it means. Verizon LTE, 5 to 12 megabits per second. Sprint WiMAX, 3 to 6 megabits per second. T-Mobile HSPA Plus, peak of 21 megabit per second, but phone scoop tests have found that in reality you get about 2 to 5 megabits per second. So we're talking 10 megabits per second, 6 megabits per second are your best bets for your 4G services, what are called 4G services in the United States. Outside the U.S., here's what you get. Telia Sonera LTE in Scandinavia, Denmark, Finland, all those places, 20 to 80 megabits per second.
Holy cow.
Vodafone in Germany, LTE, 50 megabits per second. NTT Docomo LTE Japan, 37 megabits per second. Even VMAX, WiMAX in Taiwan, 16 megabits per second.
All right, now, I know that there's the conventional wisdom. Whenever you ask, like, well, why do we lag so behind? How come we don't have it? And usually the answer is because this government agency, they got their act together and they picked such and such early on, and that's why, they're so much better. Is that really the case for this, or is there what is it about these environments? Are they getting special government dispensation, or is somebody picking a direction and go with it, or is there something about the environment that makes it so hospitable to crazy high bandwidth?
I wish that we had more time to go into this, and a lot of people are spending a lot of time trying to figure out what is it exactly that is going on here. One of the problems in figuring it out is that every study that is done has all of the carriers and the incumbents and the telcos here in the United States working very hard to discredit it. But in my opinion, what's happened is we allowed the telcos to take over the pipes that the United States helped fund to be built and treat them as a private resource, even though they weren't a private resource, and allowed them to drag their heels and not invest more money in building out capacity. And so it is in those businesses' best interests to roll things out very slowly and petition the government to come in on their side and prevent people from using too much bandwidth. It is in the telco's best interests for people to not want to go and make the best use of the service they're given. So we have created a system here where large companies have a disincentive to innovate and roll out. In other countries, what they've done is said, look, we will help subsidize your business, but you have to open those pipes to competition. And in those cases, you actually have competition on the right-of-way. It's like a public highway system instead of a cable television system. And the same thing has happened in cell phone business to a lesser extent. Cell phone business is easier to get into, and you don't have pipes to lay down. But the carriers have really dragged their heels because they are all run by the big telcos, and the big telco mindset prevails with them. There's problems with my arguments here, but that's my best stab at it.
Well, no, and I'll tell you, I get into arguments with my friend Andrew Main. I'm the kind of guy who wants to see a lot of stuff rolled back because I feel like so many of our freedoms and competition is restricted because of situations like this where it's cheaper and easier to use the sometimes corrupt hammer of government in order to get your way. I get bent out of shape about it, but he doesn't, because he says that technology will outpace the bureaucracy. And when I look at the wireless growth, I hope that's the case, because obviously when we're dealing with established infrastructure, when we're looking at copper that's been subsidized by the government in order to be laid, to send the pipes everywhere, that's one thing. But I have this fantasy that somewhere in a garage somewhere, someone developed something wireless that all of a sudden we just leapfrog and, 200 megabits is available over some, radio bandwidth or something. I mean, in ways we could never even think of in the future.
Or we're able to use copper wire to just take all the copper wire that the telcos are abandoning, and we figure out how to maximize that out, and we just take that resource from them and make municipal networks, or make some local private networks that then can compete. What we need is competition, and what the telcos have done, and I don't want to get into trying to tease out exactly the ways in which they've done it, but what the telcos have done is prevent anyone from competing with them. And they've reconsolidated over the years so that we only have 4 wireless carriers, and the telcos that run the wired lines don't compete with each other. You don't have overlapping AT&T, Verizon networks. That's all you got. You got Verizon in the east, AT&T in the west. They divided up the empire. And the only thing they compete with is cable, and cable doesn't allow anybody to compete with them in their local areas either. So, we've done universal service funds that in ways that have given telcos money from the government. There's been other subsidies and price controls that have given money to telcos from the government. There have been in the past. There's no more monopoly laws for cable companies anymore, but in the past there was, which kind of set them up to have an unfair advantage. So it's a really messed up marketplace right now.
Well, here's what I want to see. I want to see a revolution. I want to see folk songs written. I want to see these folk songs posted on YouTube. I want to see a popular uprising, and I want to see them make a movie about the revolution of internet bandwidth, and then I want to see us talk about that movie in Film Found.
We will not be talking about that movie today, Brian, but we will talk films in Film Found.
That's the official Film Found voice. The dulcet tones of Tomas Moritz reading to us the story of Everest.
So I get the Weta newsletter. The Weta are the folks. They're kind of like the...
I'm sorry, the what?
The Industrial Light and Magic for George Lucas. Weta is to Peter Jackson.
Can you spell that? What is it?
WETA.
Isn't that?
I think if you're a Kiwi, you'd say it Weta.
Well, I think maybe it's a South Texas thing, but my wife was raised in the Rio Grande Valley. I think that's not a nice word to call a white woman.
I didn't think about that. It's a bug. And I'm going to say Weta now. Okay. So
we're agreed. It's Weta. Let's talk.
In Wellington, New Zealand, they invited 13 dwarves and 1 hobbit to turn up for a panel. This is the first time that large numbers of the cast of the forthcoming movie, The Hobbit, got together. And look at that. Watson from Sherlock showed up because he is, of course, Bilbo Baggins.
He's very hobbitish now that I look at him that way.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't think about it, but now I'm just like, he's a hobbit.
I am really looking forward to this movie now because the cast looks fantastic. And we are getting back Ian McKellen as Gandalf. We're actually going to get Bilbo from the original movie playing the older Bilbo
so he does.
as well. Yeah, he's going to make a reprise. So this will be the younger Bilbo. Elijah Wood is on board to play Frodo. Kate Blanchett on board to play Galadriel. So,
but they're not going to be. I mean, how much are they going to be in the movie? It's got to be just some kind of epilogue at the end, right?
Well, the older Bilbo, what's his name? I can't remember the guy who played Bilbo in Lord of the Rings now. But
I don't know, but all I know is I jumped out of my seat when he gets all looking for the ring.
It reminds me of Pope Benedict XVI when he does that.
when he does the evil face?
Yeah, yeah.
With the dark circles under his eyes?
Yeah,
Wow.
I associate it's like a separated birth thing for me. Ian Holm is the name of the current Bilbo in The Hobbit, but I'm trying to remember, right? Oh, wait. Or is Ian Holm the old one?
I don't know.
Now I'm freaking confused. Yes,
So
Ian Holm was Sir Ian Holm was the Hobbit in Lord of the Rings.
Yes, I believe you. So whatever it is you said is what I believe. Here's the thing. I liked the Lord of the Ring movies. All right. I mean, I liked them a lot. I'll say I liked them. I liked them a lot, and I was very thankful for them because I loved the Hobbit book a ton. But when I got to the Lord of the Rings book, I mean, I never even made it through the first book of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I got up to Tom Bombadil, and I fell off at that point. And it was just so many singing songs or whatever. So I'm so thankful for the movies. I really enjoyed the epic journey that they took me through. I'm weirdly ambivalent about The Hobbit because I had such a good experience with the book. I don't know what I'm going to get out of the movie outside of like, yes, that's The Hobbit.
Well, yeah, you're gonna get Bilbo. You're gonna get old Bilbo with Ian Holm. I'm guessing Ian Holm shows up at the very beginning when he's like telling the story or something. But Galadriel and Gandalf, they all are all in the regular story, especially Gandalf. I mean, he's not in it as much, but he's in right at the beginning, and he pops in from time to time. So that they'll be in it through the rest of the thing.
Well, that's cool. Look, I mean, it also seems a little bit anti-club. I don't know. It's what was great about The Hobbit before reading Lord of the Rings is The Hobbit was such a joyful little story, and The Ring played a very small part of it, and it was on balance a very happy and positive part of it. And then all of a sudden you start these other movies, and it turns out that The Ring is so gigantic and evil, by the way, which I didn't tell you in that whole first book.
Spoiler alert.
Go backwards now. You know what I mean? Jack, really? It's like all the whole thing is about destroying the ring. It has to be.
Shush.
We're spoiler shy now, is what it is.
No, I think you gotta let that one go. In all seriousness, but I feel like The Hobbit is an essential part of the entire Lord of the Rings story. And you're right, they're very different in tone. But I remember when I was done watching all of the Lord of the Rings, I immediately said, I want to watch The Hobbit now. I want to see the entire universe. It's all part of a set. Silmarillion, they don't need to make it a movie because the Silmarillion is not a story the way Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit are. But The Hobbit is, so I want to see that.
So here's what I'd like to see from the Hobbit movie, and I think this could get me on board with it. I would love it if, much as the Hobbit was a very small, tight story that was adorable and filled with joy and hope and sadness and clever twists, that it was in many ways it was intended as a primer for what would become the Lord of the Rings series. Even though they're doing it in reverse order, I hope it's not heavy with... Look, the Star Wars prequels are totally stupid to watch. Well, period. But they're doubly stupid if you've never seen the original trilogy, right? There's no reason to ever watch the prequels first and then the original trilogy. And part of that is because you can't take back what you know about the original trilogy, so they write to that. And the fact that they're involving characters and actors, I mean, obviously characters, but the actors from the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, what I hope they're not going to do is make it to where the intended best viewing experience is Lord of the Rings and then Hobbit and here's a little extra story that happened before it. I want The Hobbit to be the first of the movies that I want my daughter to watch when she's 12 years old. And I want The Hobbit to be a story that leads her into the grandiose epic of Lord of the Rings. That's what I'm hoping, and that's what I'm skeptical about.
I think you'll get that, though, because, first of all, that's the way it was written. So the source material already pushes you that direction. It's not like Star Wars where they had to create the prequels out of whole cloth and a few notes. There is a story that was written before Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. And second, Peter Jackson is incredibly respectful of the source material. So I don't see him trying to pull it in some other direction.
I mean, look, you are correct, and these are my concerns. But on the great tree of people I trust and don't trust, dude, Peter Jackson's way above George Lucas at this point. Maybe it'll change sometime in the future, but I'm hopeful about it. But still, I'm just reserved. That's all I'm going to say.
Ridley Scott is jerking us around. First, he decided that the Alien prequel was off, and he was going to make some other movie called Prometheus. Then it turns out that movie is an Alien prequel.
Don't care. This is the hot. No, I mean, I don't care that he's jerking me around. What I mean is, that's like, the fact is the hottest girl at prom wants to make out with me. Oh, then she didn't want to make out with me, but now she wants to make out with me. You know who's making out with the hottest girl at prom? This guy. And this is something Ridley Scott, Alien prequel. Oh my, I don't care. He could take it back again. He could tease me, make a joke, make a 3-minute YouTube video and say, that's what I'm making. As long as he comes back and I get the Alien prequel, I'm making out with the hottest girl at prom, bro.
You made out with Ridley Scott?
What I'm saying is I made out with the xenomorph alien while Horseboy watched.
Oh, right. I get it now. All right, let us correct ourselves once again, beating ourselves with a cat of nine tails that we once on this show thought X-Men First Class was going to be a television show. It is, in fact, a movie, and we now have definitive proof that it is going to be a movie. Here's the trailer.
Oh, wait a minute.
Here's the trailer.
Sorry, I'm not on my
Somebody's
game.
off his game.
Here's the trailer.
I'm too used to frame rate tomorrow. That's my excuse. All right, here we go.
Here's the trailer.
That's my excuse.
The trailer. And now the trailer.
It says before he was Professor X, he was Charles. Before he was Magneto, he was Eric.
Marvel.
It shall be the policy of this nation to regard any nuclear missile launched from Cuba against any nation in the Western Hemisphere as an attack by the Soviet Union on the United States.
On June 3rd.
The cost of freedom is always high. No one can foresee precisely what course it will take. One path we shall never choose, and that is the path of surrender.
Yeah.
You ready for this? Let's find out.
Doing cool mutant stuff.
And Kevin Bacon.
Listen to me very carefully, my friend. Killing will not bring you peace.
Peace was never an option.
I don't know if you noticed. First of all, you know I'm a tremendous fan of period science fiction or period sci-fi and period fantasy, and to have a superhero movie in the 1960s was Cuban Missile Crisis, right?
Right. Because the idea is this is when the X-Men school has begun, and so they're setting it in the time period when the X-Men comic began. Which kind of makes sense.
Yeah, and so you see so many nods back to the golden age. You see the yellow and black costumes, but my favorite nod is the fact that they're flying in the SR-71 Blackbird, which was the original jet that they flew around in the X-Men comic book. After seeing the trailer, I must say, whatever hesitation I had is gone now. I really want to see this thing. This looks very fun.
Yeah, it looks very well done. And apologies to the audio listeners. You're not going to you got to go watch it. Just go search X-Men First Class trailer because it is all visual, and the visuals are amazing. You aren't going. My worry was a little bit that I was going to miss Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart, and these guys don't. They're not even trying to make them look like Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart, but I don't care They look
Yes.
they look like they are dead on right for these roles. They look like they get them.
And it's good. I think that's good because who Magneto became and who Professor X became is different than who they were when this journey began and their friendship. It's like they're different people, and that's okay that they don't have to look or sound like the old men that they became because they should be filled with fire and talk in different ways than they do down the road. I'm very excited about this.
All right, let's finish up our film segment with a note that coming up this weekend, a couple of minorly geeky movies. I Am Number 4 is opening this weekend in the United States. Mysterious young fugitive with extraordinary powers must stay one step ahead of ruthless enemies sent to destroy him. And Unknown, with Liam Neeson starring as a doctor who wakes up from a car accident to discover that another man has assumed his identity.
Should have a face-off. Like, which of these are you going to watch?
I was actually excited to see I Am Number 4 when I first saw the trailer, but this is one of those examples with the more they showed me of the movie in trailers, the less excited I was. Until now, I'm like, I don't even know if I'm going to bother.
Yeah. Although the Liam Neeson one sounds interesting. I, unfortunately, have a ridiculous schedule, so movies are a little bit tough for me this week. But I am continuing to, well, we'll talk about it in Tube Tops.
Let's do it now. Jason Howell's got his mojo back.
You could tell. Jason was like, I am not going to miss this one. My finger is on the trigger. Yeah. I hear the word tubes, and we're on. And go.
For like 5 minutes, I had my finger on that space bar.
I got it.
Yes.
All right, not too much in the Tube Tops this week. Exclusive report from Beat.tv or late last week. Daily Motion. Do you ever use Daily Motion? It's a French-based website that's kind of like a YouTube.
You know, when I first got on to my whole journey in new media began with a little series called Brian Brushwood on the Road. These little 5-minute vignettes where we would capture life on the road, goofy adventures. At one point, I fall through a hotel ceiling. At another point, I give a guy a tattoo. And I wanted them to go published everywhere, so I made accounts on everything. TubeMogul was a syndication service that you published once to TubeMogul, and it sent it out to everyone. So I found out all the players. That's where I learned about Blip TV and Daily Motion. And in fact, I still, when I have bizarre little videos that I don't want to be found on YouTube, before they offered the unlisted feature on YouTube, I used to publish them to a Daily Motion account. So yeah, I'm hip to Daily Motion for sure. That was also the land. I don't know if it's true or not, but you could find a lot of copyrighted television posted. It seemed like they took a while to take that stuff down on Daily Motion.
Daily Motion is now paired up with Live Station to provide live streaming television news from Al Jazeera English, Bloomberg, the BBC, France 24, and sources from all around, including like the United States NASA channel. So a lot of the live channels that you can get in apps and on Netflix or on Roku boxes and stuff are now available through Daily Motion. So I tell you what, man, having the ability to stream the BBC and Al Jazeera during the coverage of the Egyptian unrest was essential and changed the way I watch news. I didn't go turn on the television and watch CNN because I was so frustrated with the way CNN covers. They have some good reporters, but the way they cover stuff is just, it's so cheap sometimes, unless there's certain reporters doing something. And I will say Anderson Cooper does a great job, but a lot of times it's just so frustrating. So I had these other sources to turn to, and I wouldn't even have to get up and go away from my computer. I could actually have the BBC running or have Al Jazeera English running and get much more comprehensive and I felt substantive coverage that way.
I didn't watch the Al Jazeera coverage. Weirdly, I sort of just sat out the Egyptian riots and just waited to see where you know I didn't watch moment to moment or retweeting. It's like, well, you know, it's gonna shake out the way it will. I mean, it's fascinating. But I'll tell you what I do watch as far as alternative news sources is I'll check out a lot of stuff from Russia Today. Have you ever seen their TV program?
Oh yeah, I don't watch them that much, but I do know I am aware of them.
Yeah, and I'm trying to figure out their angle. I mean, I don't know. It's like I'm into obviously their marketing. In fact, they had a series of ads that were banned in airports. So I was at Baltimore Washington Airport, and it's just like they had these little giant posters that says This is an ad for Russia Today. To see the one we were not allowed to post, go to, and it gave the website, and it was a really controversial stuff. Hopefully, Jason's looking up right now if you look for banned Russia Today ads. But they really seem to be playing up the whole counterculture thing. It's like there's the internet has made us aware that there are international viewpoints that don't line up with what the big three, MSNBC, Fox, or CNN, tell us we should see on a lot of the major issues.
Well, let me tell you, this goes back to what we were talking about earlier. The pressure of the consumer marketplace to change the rules of the game is coming from things like this, right? Everybody thinks like, oh, well, I've sat down with ABC, Fox, NBC, and CBS, and we're going to block that Google TV, but the cracks start with things like Russia Today or Al Jazeera English saying, you know what, we want to be on that box. We want to provide information. We want to provide entertainment to people. And, you know, it may be a small start, but all of a sudden it starts to grow and grow and grow until somebody says, wow, look at the viewership for Russia Today. Where are they getting that from? Yeah. We need to be like that, too.
Yeah.
All right, looking ahead to television, IO9, by the way, provides a weekly look ahead to the week on television that I think is pretty useful. It's pretty fantastic. If you're looking for geeky programs, The Cape is back on NBC starting tonight at 9 p.m. I don't think I'll be joining them, but
I know I feel so weird. I feel like we heard some gossip about the Cape, like. You know, Cape's got VD. And all of a sudden it's like, you know, the Cape walks up at the party and we're just like, hey, Cape. Hey.
Sorry I haven't been around much lately. What's going on?
I've just been real busy. I've been seeing the Venture Brothers.
Yeah, Being Human, the American thing's pretty good. We've been hanging, you know, on Mondays at 9 p.m. Also,
but you know what? One more thing on the Cape is I would feel different about it if I heard anybody defending it, and I really don't. All I hear is like, oh, it's not so bad, like that.
If you're a fan of V, I'm so sorry that you're lonely, but they are going to have a lizard family reunion. Anna is enraged at the increasing audacity of the Fifth Column attacks, enlists Ryan in an attempt to wipe out the Fifth Column. Meanwhile, Father Travis, following Vatican orders, asked Jack to... I don't even know what any of this means anymore, and I am watching it. So
what's funny is like, what are the numbers for V like these days? It can't be pulling. I mean, I hear so much betrayal in the voices of even people who love V. I mean, is anybody watching or?
I think people are turning their heads. I think that's what's going on there. Friday at 7 p.m. It's 7:30. A new Ben 10 Ultimate Alien and a new Generator Rex on the Cartoon Network. I have not watched these, but I hear they're good. Smallville is, you know, churning its way towards its final episode when Clark Kent, spoiler alert, turns into Superman. That was our below yellow level spoiler alert. Jason sneezed.
Yeah, that's.
Jason didn't even hit the spoiler alert, even though you said the word.
I was mid-sneeze.
You said the word spoiler
alert. What can I say? Today's just not my day.
Fringe, of course, continuing on Fridays at 9 p.m. on Fox. Even if you don't watch it, DVR it and then play it back with the TV off. It still counts. We need to save that. Merlin is back on Sci-Fi, which I'm probably the only one excited about. And actually, the thing I'm most excited about this week is Being Human, the BBC version, the original British version, is back on BBC America this Saturday at 9 p.m.
So are you going to continue to watch both versions forever? Like, are you just that into it, or are you going to pick one of the? Let's say the American version turns out to be really pretty good. Can you see yourself falling behind on the British version because you don't want to spoil future incoming story arcs?
No, I'm not worried about that. I was worried about that before I started watching the Sci-Fi version, the American version, but I can see the differences they're taking. And I think it's going to be like The Office, where you can watch the British version, and there's some similar storylines for sure in that first season, but it goes off in such a different direction. You can totally enjoy them both, and I think that'll be true of Being Human as well.
I guess it'd be roughly like the equivalent of, you know, I'm going to continue reading The Walking Dead without any fear of what it's going to do to my Walking Dead TV experience.
Yeah,
because
I think so.
It's just a different story, and they're going to interpret it their own way. Yeah.
All right, on to Interferon. That's the web video. So good on tube tops. Just remember that moment.
I just want to give a hug to Jason.
I know, exactly. Everybody send your positive vibes.
I looked in the doc and there was no link there, and I forgot about the whole YouTube thing.
Well, and actually, that is a good point. Viral videos are very regional. It's very, you do have occasionally, your Chocolate Rains or your Leave Britney Alones, but in the meantime, there are clusters of stuff that certain groups find very, very funny or that run in certain circles. And in an effort to match our demographic, do us a favor. Send in stuff that you would like us to talk about as far as viral trends, viral videos. You can send them all in to framerateshow@gmail.com, especially opening videos that you'd like to see at the beginning. We don't care if they're classic or been around the block. We like revisiting some of the old ones. But certainly in the Interferon segment, we do want to talk about trends that you've noticed or memes that you'd like to hear us talk about, because this is a case where it's your show and we want to hear where you're going.
Now, we talked a little bit last week about the Super Bowl ads, but one thing we didn't talk about were the Super Bowl movie trailers. At youtube.com/Super Bowl, you can get all of the ads from the Super Bowl. There were trailers for Thor, for Captain America, for Pirates of the Caribbean. It seemed like, actually, most of the movie trailers shown in the Super Bowl were geeky movies.
It's a good time to be a geek. It's a good time for us to... I wonder what it says about our society, and I wonder if it's a case where the internet has forced more Americans to become at least a little bit tech savvy, which has given them a deeper appreciation for sci-fi and geeky stuff, or maybe the rise of the geeks is what has created this pro-internet society where everyone's a little bit more tech savvy.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, also, think about it, like Chatter.com, CarMax, Cars.com, Sony Ericsson Xperia, Motorola Zoom. There are a ton of high-tech ads in here, and then you pair that up with all the geeky movies. It was a geek fest in the advertising portion. Maybe because they know that folks on the internet will pass their links around and turn them into have a chance of turning them into virals.
That'll be really interesting, because when a single runaway music video or a single viral hit can all of a sudden on its own, with virtually no production cost, no distribution expenses, can get the kind of traffic that the most highly watched live commercial in all of history can do at the Super Bowl, then I'll tell you what, man, it wouldn't surprise me if fully half of all the views these commercials get by 3 years from now come from online, where it's the original launch at the Super Bowl is a significant but not all-encompassing aspect of their total numbers. I would certainly focus on the type of demographic that's going to pass those videos around.
Do we want to play one of these trailers before we get to emails?
I did not see the Captain America one, and that one caught my eye. I didn't think I would be interested in it, but the posters and marketing really kind of have me engaged. Especially, it's another period superhero movie, which I'm excited about that.
Yeah, this is there's kind of like a Marvel rivalry going on with all of these.
All right, here we go.
Stay who you are. Not just a soldier, but a good man.
Tommy Lee Jones!
How do you feel?
Taller.
What do you think?
I think it works.
I'm telling you, man,
Avenger.
You get away with setting something in the 1940s, man, that might as well be Mordor as far as I'm concerned. That's an imaginary place that never really existed in my world. So all of a sudden, you get away with so many things that I wouldn't believe in the rest of the world. And I love the aesthetic that they're going for. You know what? This one is on the map for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the trend of really being true to the origin of saying, you know what, we're going to go back to the basics. We're going to say Captain America launched in the 40s. Let's make it look like the 40s. X-Men launched in the 60s. Let's set it in the 60s. And
Watchmen, keeping the Watchmen in the 1980s with the concerns that we cared about back in the 1980s. Yeah. Absolutely.
I run a risk saying this, I realize that, but do you think there's possibly an oversaturation of comic book movies going on right now? I feel like there are so many coming out that I can't I don't even know what to focus on. Now, mind you, I'm not like a huge comic fan. I haven't been in the past, so I guess that might be why I don't, decide one way or the other. But I don't know.
It's kind of
feels
fair
like there's
question.
so many
It's a
coming
fair
out.
question because there are a lot of comic book movies coming out. Part of the reason is because they've been successful, though.
Yeah.
And so, the
I guess
question
until they
is,
stop doing well.
Hollywood always does this, right? If action movies become successful, then all of a sudden there's a bunch of action movies. When The Matrix was suddenly successful, everybody was making Matrix ripoffs. Star Wars came out, suddenly everybody's making sci-fi movies. So, I think it looks like they're doing the right thing and making good movies, but we'll see if the wider public will support it. I don't know. What do you think, Brian?
I agree that there are a lot, but too many is a subjective opinion. We certainly are Maggoty with Marvel movies at the moment. That was a lot of M's. But I don't
Marvel
mind
movies.
It. And I like some of the spin-offs stuff. They're not just they're comic bookish movies as well, but not necessarily based on a comic book. Because Cowboys and Aliens isn't a comic book movie, is it?
Yep.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, then, yeah, too many comic book movies. Dang it.
That one pushed it over the edge.
All right, let's move on to some feedback from the folks who send us nice electronic mail missives to framerateshow@gmail.com. Do you want to read the
first one? I'll tell you what, you read the first one. I'll read the second one. Yeah.
All right, I will read the first one.
I was missing a cue.
Nathan Lawrence. Now you're gun shy.
Yeah. Like, wait a minute, I don't remember the email.
We do need someone
video.
to send us an email segment header. Well, anyway, Nathan says, I took your challenge and watched a random Netflix instant movie all the way through. It was Exam, an independent film in the vein of Cube, only without as much gore and with a much lighter story. Exam was one of those films where I couldn't ever really decide if it was good or bad. Overall, I was mildly entertained. Though, if you like crazy, insolvable puzzle movies, you may like Exam.
Wait, was that the one I picked for last week and we didn't read it?
Yeah, I think it was in there. Did we read it last week?
I don't know.
Yeah, Near Dog's saying you already read this.
They say we read it last week.
Well, we didn't want to spoil you.
This is the reverse of the spoiler.
Yeah.
This is we're making up for last week's spoiler.
We really liked Exam, okay? We just wanted to make sure you hadn't forgot that Nathan watched it and was ambivalent about it, okay?
Yeah, this is our rerun segment.
That's the best part. It's not even like he loved it. He just thought it was all right. And so he had to. Oh, okay. By the way, the name of this episode has to be Made on a Monday because this is what happens when you try to do Frame Rate on a Monday. Here's what I'm going to read. We have from Gary from Lancashire, UK, United Kingdom. Hey, Brian and Tom, still loving Frame Rate from over here in the UK. Just watched the first 2 episodes of Hawaii Five-0, and although formulaic in the same way as NCIS Los Angeles, found it very well made and extremely entertaining. Having noted that the lead character is an Australian actor, it made me realize how many foreigners play Americans these days, from Dominic West and Idris Elba in The Wire, Hugh Laurie in House, Hugh Jackman, or Huge Action, as my wife calls him.
Whoa!
Jamie Bamber in Battlestar Galactica, Joseph Fiennes of Flash Forward, and not forgetting Damian Lewis in Band of Brothers, possibly the best miniseries ever made. I could go on. My question is, do all of these actors' voices sound natural to you, or do you immediately spot them as false? There are some very good examples of Americans doing English accents. Robert Downey Jr. as Sherlock Holmes and Renee Zellweger as Bridget Jones comes to mind, but there have been some spectacular failures. The daddy of all time being Dick Van Dyke in Mary Poppins, who got it so wrong, it was right, if you know what I mean. How many foreign Dick Van Dykes can you currently spot working in American television? Anyway, keep up the excellent standard. Gary from Lancashire, UK. What do you think? That's a great question, by the way.
I don't know what to think of that question. They're actors. What is their natural? What are they supposed to sound like?
No. Okay. Look. Here's the thing. And the question is, are there? He gave all examples of really good ones. I remember the first time.
Yeah. Okay.
An actor who had tricked me into sounding American, and it was Bob Hoskins from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. First time I heard an interview with him, I was just like, he doesn't talk anything like the guy in the show. And I felt so betrayed. I'm going to admit, I don't think I've ever... I guess all the Brits are better than us at...
I don't know. I can think of the guy who played the main character in Journeyman, a short-run TV show about time travel. And he is now a doctor on the medical show, Grey's Anatomy. He is, I believe, English, maybe Australian. And when I watched him on Journeyman, I was like, where is this guy from? His accent's all over the place. Sometimes it's Southern. Sometimes it sounds like Boston. They're supposed to be in St. Louis. Like, I don't get it. And then I found out, oh, he's not American. It all made sense. The other one is Suki Stackhouse, who also was in X-Men. Can't remember her real name because it's Monday. But, you know, that girl. Anyway, she actually is not American. She's Canadian with New Zealand roots. And when she was doing her Southern accent, again, I thought, there's something weird in there, you know, but I can't put my finger on it. It's a pretty good Southern accent, but I'm like, is she from really far north, like Maine or something? And then I think on the opposite side, Broken LCD brought up a really good example. Gillian Anderson does a killer British accent.
You know, and I'm told on the bad side, and again, I wouldn't know because, you know, they all sound British to me, but I'm told that Gwyneth Paltrow's British accent in Sliding Doors was legendarily bad.
And the weird thing is Gwyneth Paltrow has relatives in England. So she should have an advantage at that.
You know, and here's the thing. Maybe it's because I'm American. I don't notice when they all sound great for the most part. I very rarely notice, but what I do notice are when people go to England for 20 minutes and come back with an English accent. I do not buy that for a second, whether it's Madonna on down to, like, I had a friend of mine who went over and after 6 months came back and she's like, well, maybe we'll have a go. I'm like, who are you? What is this?
But that's just getting used to, that's just, you know, whether you resist or adapt to the culture you're around. It's like, you know, moving to Austin, Texas and deciding, yeah, I'm going to call it Guadalupe Street instead of Guadalupe because that's what everybody calls it here, you know,
or Manchac,
or Manchac,
Manor Road instead of Manor. Clearly
exactly.
Says Manor.
San Jacinto. So all of those things are little examples of that, which we don't pay that much attention to because the similarities outweigh the differences. But if you spend a lot of time in another country, I think it's, you know, you start to give in and be like, you know what, I just want to make myself understood, so I'm gonna say it this way. Yeah,
but then you come back to America, you're still playing that game.
Well, you know, some of it is habit, and I think it does last. But I think people do like to kind of not get out of the habit as fast as maybe they naturally would because they think it sounds cool.
Yeah, I buy that.
Like you can't tell that I'm actually Chinese. You think my accent sounds perfectly American.
It's truly amazing, and I want more. We did get a letter from Christopher Nolan.
Oh, really? Christopher Nolan watches the show?
That's right. Christopher Nolan, Chris Nolan from Melbourne, Australia, said that he just wanted to send a quick email to tell us how much he loves Frame Rate, even from the other side of the world here in Australia. Wanted to recommend a show to you that's just started on Current TV. Heard about it and checked it out. A bunch of YouTube clips at Current TV posted on YouTube. The show is created by Will Wright, who I'm sure you both know from The Sims and Spore, the creator of SimCity and more recently Spore. The other biggest part of the show is the community that helps through the story. Let me get the name of the show. Where is it?
Is it Bar Karma?
Yes, it is Bar Karma. Do you know about it? What's the story?
No. Hey, those are just my fancy Google searching skills. I'm waiting for the site, but yes, it says Bar Karma. So there you go.
Yeah, so he's very excited.
This isn't the real Christopher Nolan, is it?
He says, no, you're just figuring that out. No, it's not creator of The Dark Knight.
No.
Or director of The Dark Knight, I should say. Also, there is a great chance to interview Will on Frame Rate because I'm sure it would be a great chat for you guys would have.
Love to.
Give you an idea. Think of it as part Quantum Leap, The Twilight Zone, and The Outer Limits. So that's great. So I'll have to put that one on the map for sure.
Absolutely. Instant feedback via Twitter from Space Guy 1, a.k.a. Rob, who says, I'm going to watch I Am Number 4 just because Marty Noxon, Buffy writer, came in to rewrite the screenplay.
Oh, really?
Interesting.
All right. Well, I'm down with that.
Thanks, Rob.
The chat room is going nuts with other examples of people who have British accents. I guess Portia de Rossi as well. Man, so many crazy people who don't Talk American. All right, I guess that's it for this episode of Frame Rate, right, Tom?
Thank you, everybody, for watching or listening. We appreciate you hanging out with us. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back next week with an all-new show. Send us your emails, framerateshow@gmail.com. We'll see you next time.
On a Tuesday. No more Monday.
Or a Wednesday. Or a Friday.